Hey, Sherri, girl.
Hey, Cory.
How are you, girl?
Good.
So, look, I wanted to dive into something that I believe is really cool. You sent me a documentary, and it talked about greatness.
Yes.
And that is like something I love to talk about, right?
Yes,
I believe that most people in the world have greatness within them, but they don't necessarily know how to take it out of them.
Right.
And I think today will be a really cool thing for us to talk about some things that you can do in your comfort of your own home to start driving your journey towards greatness, right? And so, there was something that I was reading and see, Sherri doing a little too much in here between her Siri on her phone, gonna turn it on. She trying to live chat and tweet while we're going through this. Stuff falling all over on the screen. This is Sherri, man. This is what I deal with every week, guys, just so y'all know that, all right? All right, but anyway, back to what I was saying because I was so rudely interrupted. I'm reading a book right now by Tim Grover, and it's called Relentless, right?
Yes.
And I know you've read it as well,
Yes,
and I know
great
it's
book.
something that stands out. But he said, and I thought this was a great line for what greatness is to me, right? When I read this, there were 4 words, right, that really stood out to me. He said, you need to decide, you need to commit, you need to act, and then succeed. I said, that's what I'm talking about, right? That was it in a nutshell, because greatness is just that.
Right.
Everything we do in life, we have to move forward and take some sort of action to get us to our greatness.
Right. Absolutely. So part of why I love this book, one, because he trained Kobe. Mm-hmm. He trained Michael Jordan.
Yep.
And so many other people.
So many others.
And I've since watched interviews with him, but there is this unending commitment to getting better. But it starts with that decision.
Wait, let me read this quote right here.
Okay.
It said, being relentless means demanding more of yourself than anyone else could ever demand of you.
Yes.
Stop the door.
So I'm gonna tell you something. So I feel like
shut the door. Game over. That's big.
I love that, but I'll tell you what I love about that. So I feel like the big thing in that is to be willing to be different.
Yes.
Because, and I realized, gosh, a lot of stuff happened this week. So I went to the self-care event that I told you about previously, and I went to an opening night, and I was just watching my conversation, like, compared to, like, the people that I was running into, and I was like, oh, my God. Like, I'm running out of a peer group, basically.
Right.
Because most people are not focused on grade. Most people are not trying to demand more of themselves. They are not
talking about the problems that are going on in their world, right? And
Exactly.
feeding into the conversation, right? And I think the worst thing about that is that you get around other people who like hearing other people's shit. Right? They're sitting there talking about drama, and everyone's feeding into the drama, right?
So I'm sitting there, and I was sharing. Someone asked me about my schedule, and so I was talking about like what my schedule is like. And if you look at my schedule, you'd be like, oh my God. Like, but I made a decision. I made a decision that was like, yes, I'm a mom, and yes, I'm going to give 100, but I'm not just going to give 100 to him. I'm also giving 100 to me, because I'm not a mom with kids in my 20s. So there is no window where I can wake up 20 years later and be like, oh, what did I do with those dreams? What shelf did I put them on? They got to bake right along with the kid.
You know what? You're absolutely right. And we talk about this all the time. My favorite quote is, how you do anything is how you do everything. Yes. I believe you have to give 100% of everything you do. Yes. I said this to one of my employees one time, and she totally emphatically disagreed with that conversation, right? And I thought to myself,
wait, why?
I don't know. I can't even tell you, because I believe at the end of the day, how you show up, you should show up the same way for everything that you do if you want to be great. Why settle for life if life has got to be a certain way? Why not make life be the best it can possibly be?
The reason they can catch criminals is because how you do anything is how you do everything. So they study the pattern in the crimes that you have committed, and they catch you in your stuff.
Right. You forgot to wipe down that fingerprint, okay? See, had you did the good stuff in the beginning, you'd have got away with that murder.
I mean, no, seriously, the reason that we can read history is because people are consistent. How you do something in one area is how you do it somewhere else.
Correct.
And you're fooling yourself
if you don't
think,
believe that.
Oh
my God, come on now.
Yes.
So, here's the other side of this game, right? So I think people have a tendency of not making decisions, right?
Yes.
And I said, because they don't make their decisions, they don't move forward. See, if you don't make a decision typically will be made for you.
Okay, yes. But I was about to say that a non-decision is still a decision.
Correct.
There is no point in your experience where you are not at the point of choice. I'll say that again for the folks in the back. There is no point in your experience where you are not at the point of decision. At every moment of every day, you are making a choice.
That's right.
And a non-choice is still a choice.
Yep.
And there's no real way around that. So it's why I love this work that Tim Grover has, the documentary that Lewis Howes, his team just put out, which I thought was awesome. The work that folks like Tom Bilyeu and Ed Milet, that there is this relentless pursuit of greatness.
Yep.
Not so much to be great by the world's definition, but like
my own internal.
Yeah,
right?
like I want to find out what else is in me.
I think that's the biggest part right there. I think every day individuals should be asking themselves, what else do I have more in me to give to myself? Right. Because look, here's the thing, I'll tell you this story. My wife and I, we try to do really cool little things just for our little date days and stuff like that. Well, one day we were all talking about, let's get together. We've been in California forever, and we never did certain things that we know was like iconic about California. The tour stuff, right? And so we went on one of those bus trips where you go through the Hollywood Hills and see the stars' homes and stuff like that, right? What was interesting in that process is that you don't know what you don't know. You could think you're at a high level killing it, right? Until you see somebody else killing it more, right? And you go, oh, I ain't doing nothing, okay? Because look, I think we do really well, right? And I think I enjoy our lives and I love where we're at. But let me tell you, when I got on that bus, I was looking at these houses, and these houses were like the size of my whole block, and it went around the other side of the block, you know? And I'm sitting thinking, oh yeah, I'm not thinking big enough, But what it did for me is it made me step my game up. Right. It said, how do I now get to that next level?
But see, I think you got to be around people that run faster than you.
Oh, by all means, you got to be.
I think you got to be willing to be uncomfortable in a space where people are crushing it more than you are.
Look, at the end of the day.
And I don't think a lot of people want that. Yeah, they like being the big fish in the small pond.
Sherri, but that does nothing, right? We always talk about, at the end of the day, you are going to have your life look like the people that are surrounding you on a consistent basis.
Yes.
The top 5 people in your circle is really what you're going to be made of.
Yes.
So if you can't expand who you are and think past where you're at, you'll never grow. You'll always be the smartest person and everyone's coming to you for questions. But how do you feel yourself?
I wish I could name the date, but it was like, I'm going to say September 2017, I stopped being smart. One, smart had not gotten me what I wanted, so cut that mess out. But I became a learner.
Yes.
And when I became a learner, that's when life began to open up and things changed. And so now, to the best of my ability, because it's not like that paradigm is not in there, but to the best of my ability, when I walk in a room, I walk in a room as a student.
Yes.
I walk in a room.
Hold on, let me stop for a second, okay? Because you said something I think is really powerful, right? Mm-hmm. You walk into the room as a student, which means to me that you're humbling yourself and
100.
Taking your ego off and throwing out the chips and saying, you know what? Feed me, right?
Yes.
Open my mind up to something greater. Open my mind up to something better, because what I have now is not working, or it's working enough, but I want greater.
Right. And it's a scary place to be, because there's still places. There are places when I'm great with it, but there are still rooms that I walk into when I am afraid to not be the smart one in the room, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I recognize that space where there's room for growth, because I was in a conversation earlier this week with someone that I just have an energy with this person, and it ain't good energy. And I could feel myself having that shell up. Do you know what I'm saying? And it was like, Sherri, what are you afraid of? Like, seriously, like, let it go. And these are the conversations I'm having with myself, because again, I want the best of what's inside of me. So
come
I'm not,
out so they can see it.
Yes, I'm not willing to sacrifice it to be defensive.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, that's just human being, right? That's just you internally who you are.
Okay, so I'm in a war. I'm in a war with myself.
Right, for sure.
Like literally drop the facade, and I could, and it really genuinely was work. That this is someone, if I had to I was sitting with it like, what was that energy about? And I realized it's a person that I don't trust. I feel like it's a person that I don't trust myself to be emotionally free around that person. And so the feeling is I got to protect myself. And really, it's no, you don't. Be a student wherever you go. Be open wherever you go. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Look, I think, let's simplify this to its truest nature. If you believe that where you are in your life is the best it's going to be, and you are settling on that, to me, you are doing yourself such a disservice, because there is so much more out there.
Yes.
It's so funny. I think today we live in an informational age, and it's so easy to become knowledgeable about so many things.
Right.
I love YouTube. Like, my kids turned me on to YouTube some years ago, and it was because of the fact that I was trying to learn how to do something. And my son was like, "Dad, go to YouTube." And I'm like, "What the heck is YouTube?" But when I got that in my hands, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah, YouTube is my friend. I do love YouTube. But I will say this. So for me, what makes it simple, and I'm going to pull a quote from...
Of course you are.
From Tim.
Of course you are.
He says, do the work.
Come on. Say that. Whoa. Yeah. Stop. Say that one more time.
Do the work.
Most people don't want to do the work.
No, but you know what, Cory? I find some people think that they are doing the work. And they're fooling themselves. But I think that there are people who think that they are doing the work.
Okay, so
I guess the question is, how do you know if you're actually really doing work or you're fooling yourself?
Look, I look at it like this.
And I would say you got to pay attention to your results.
But so we talked about it one time before in another podcast, and I talked about accountability. And I said at the end of the day, you got to hold yourself to a certain standard. And the only way you know how you're going forward is you have to know where you're starting from, right? So there has to be some measurement or some measuring tool that says, I am progressing forward.
Right.
I had a conversation with my son the other day, and I said to him, and my sons they're amazing by all rights. And I don't mean that just as a proud parent, but at the end of the day, the things that they do is so much light years ahead of what their peers are doing,
Right.
And I love that about them. But still, for me, they're always like, "Dad, you're pushing us. You're hard on us." I'm like, "Of course, I want greatness from you. Absolutely. You're my child, and that's how I see it." And I remember having a conversation with Chance, my youngest son, and we were talking about what he wants to do. So right now, Chance is heavily into trading stocks online himself, right? He loves to trade stocks. The other day, he made almost $1,100 on a trade. I was like, okay, go with yourself, right? But he's also into the artistic side because he likes cutting hair. That's his thing, right? But what was great about all this, and when I had a conversation with him, I was telling him, I said, what is your measurement? Right. What are you measuring your growth on? And more importantly, how do you know you're moving in the direction that's going to get you to your greatness?
Right.
There's got to be something that says that, right?
Right.
Because I want to know that all these years that you're doing whatever you're doing, is it moving you to your end destination? You have to start with the end in mind,
you
right?
Cannot manage you cannot manage what you will not measure.
There you go.
And so if you won't measure it, then there's no way to say that you won.
Right.
You get to name what winning is, but you got to name what winning is.
Right. Because as you go through that journey and that road, there's going to be many paths to get to that end result. But how do you know if you're going in the most efficient way and getting there the fastest or the most, way that's going to actually increase your insight as you go? Because the journey is the process, right? As you go through the journey, that's what gets you to where you want to be at, because you're learning all these little things on what not to do.
Right.
So that way when you get where you want to be, you can do all that you have to do.
Right. So one, we're on the same page on this because I'm interested in greatness.
Yes.
I am convinced that that each person, it's not unique to any race, culture, class, gender, sexual orientation, that each person has unlimited treasure within themselves. And that this universe, how you do anything is how you do everything. How this universe does anything is how this universe does everything. So there is this unrelenting consistency with the way that this world is set up. And if any person can create something great, then everybody person can.
Come on.
And the question is, are you willing to do the work to get at what is yours to share?
Yes. You know, I think everything you just said right there was so spot on point. But here's what I think also. If I was to give someone steps, right, and I said, okay, what would I do with someone brand spanking new, trying to figure out where they are in their lives and how do they become better, right? So you know my platform is all about be better, right? Be more, give more, have more, right? In that process, the very first thought is you have to self-internalize who you are first. Because I don't think you can know what greatness is until you know where you stand in your life.
Right.
What is your convictions? What are you passionate about? What are the things that you will move mountains for because it's something that's in you, right? And until you find out who that person is, you can't move forward. You can't go for greatness because you're still working on who you are, right? And I think that's a challenge for most people. So, Sherri, if you were giving someone a 1, 2, 3 move right now and say, hey, this is what I would work on first, right? In finding out who you are, what would be the 3 things you would say right off the top would be?
I would say you'd have to decide if this universe is friendly and on your side. I think that matters. I think that if this world is unfair and that's how you see it, then I don't know what you have to drive you. I think that the second thing is that you have to make a decision that you can do something different, and that what you can do will make a difference. And I think that because if you don't have that, then there's no reason to get up in the morning. If you don't believe it, I don't think we're just here to just take up oxygen.
Right.
So if your perspective is that, average person, I'm going to do average things and it's not going to make a difference in the world, there's nothing to drive you. And then I think the third thing is that you got to get clear on where it is that you want to go. I think there's a lot of resistance to actually developing that clarity. But it takes work to develop that clarity, and thought does not bring clarity, action brings clarity. So there is some little bit of pre-thought that goes into it, but then you've actually got to get up and begin to do in the direction of what it is that you think you want to do, and then course correct along the way.
Right. Yeah, I think if I was to sit down and come up with 3 things that come up immediately, I think the very first thing you need to do is really, figure out what your purpose is. Like, I believe every person, kind of like what you just said, every person is brought on this earth to do something. And it's more than just going to a job 9 to 5 every day, coming home, kissing your kids, and going to bed. There's got to be something in you that's bigger than you. And when you find out what that is, that'll help drive you to the direction you need to go.
Right.
So I think number 1 is finding your purpose. I think the second thing is getting clarity on what the end in mind looks like for you. Like you said, I think knowing where I want to get to, and then it becomes not how do I get there, but just to start the journey. I think most people today have a tendency of not starting. Right? They're so fearful of failing.
They want to see the entire path.
Yeah.
In order to get started.
What course I got to take? Where do I got to go? What route do I get on? What map do I read?
And there is no one that has that. That's not
playing out.
Right. There's no way to find that out.
Right.
Because inevitably something is going to come up, and you can't account for what other people are going to do along the way. You set out on the path to do whatever, but that has no bearing on what you choose to do. And
Correct.
So in some way, your plan may, I don't want to say interfere, but your plan may impact my plan, and then
we're on a different course, but it gets us to our direction. Right.
Exactly.
And I think the third thing for me is be okay to forgive your mistakes. A lot of people can't do that, you know? We go down a path and we'll sit in that
I'm raising my
doom
hand.
and gloom area,
I'm
right? For
raising my
so
hand.
long that we can't move. We become immobile. We can't, drive forward because we're so caught up in our own crap
Right.
that now we can't
So-
forgive ourselves to move forward.
So we should settle right there because that's a big one for me.
Yep.
How do you forgive yourself? And I work with that because I forgive a lot from other people.
Right.
I can't think of one grudge I hold and really, genuinely hold, but I will hold, in a sense, a grudge against myself,
Right.
against a choice I made.
Like, I knew better. I shouldn't have did that.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. But here's the thing. I think in the simplest form of this process, we have to be able to say to ourselves, I'm fallible. I make mistakes. I'm human. Because here's the thought. You're not omnipotent. You don't make no mistakes, right? You have to make mistakes in order to learn from the process.
Right.
You can't believe in one sense that we're failing forward, then that's all about the growth and building. And then the other side, you're saying I'm perfect and I can't make mistakes. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's counterproductive, right? At the end of the day, right?
Right.
So you're basically having two opinions beating each other up inside of your brain, which then
Right.
again doesn't allow you to move forward because you're so focused on whichever one you feed the most, right?
Yes,
Talk about the two wolves inside
Yes,
of you, right?
yes,
If
yes.
you're feeding that neglect, that part that you're upset about, the part that you can't forgive on, then
Yes.
that's what's going to be growing
Yes.
and growing and growing, right? We have to be able to let that go.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can move to your greatness or move to whatever your purpose is until you can release within inside of you that I'm okay and I got to move forward and I got to let this go and move on. It's just one more way I found out that it doesn't work.
Right.
Now what's the next step?
Right. Yeah.
Come on, Shay.
Yeah. No, it's just real talk. And it's funny that I work in the world of spirituality because
The cobbler in the shoes. The cobbler in the shoes,
yes.
right?
Because that piece of self-forgiveness is so huge. And on some level, I know that it's a key that once it's genuinely accomplished, right? Because there are levels to it.
Yep.
I'm less critical of myself today than I was last week, last month, last year. But I still know that there's still a button on it. And maybe it's getting to that place where I let go of wishing that things could have been different.
Look, Mel Robbins talks about the 5-second rule, right? I believe that you have to have that ability to let go, right, in that time.
I
period,
love Mel
right?
Robbins, but this 5 seconds has been...
But look, here's how I look at it. Like I think that, I wrote in my book in Pause, right? And one of the things I talked about, I said, you get 30 minutes to wallow in the shit, period, right? Because after 30 minutes, you need to knock off the door and say, dust yourself off, let's move on. In our household, we talk about this all the time. You can't go to bed mad, right? Because I believe that you don't know what tomorrow may bring, so you don't want to do that, right?
Right.
But when it comes to our own self-realization of how we're working through stuff, we get caught up in the moment, right?
Right.
And how you react to the situation is what determines who you're going to be going forward.
Right.
Like, I'm guilty of it as well. I know when
Right.
I'm mad, I'm mad. I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm done. But I also realize that my reaction to a current situation could have so much impact on my whole day because I allowed it to be that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that most people have to sit down and say to themselves, this too shall pass. This is a limited time frame that I'm dealing with, a temporary problem.
Right.
But at the end result, I will be on the other side.
Right.
And that's where we go.
Right. Okay. All right. I'm willing to go with that. And at the end of the day, I want greatness.
Right.
And I think that part of accepting your greatness is embracing all the ways that you either have let yourself down, made mistakes, all of those things. Yeah. And draining off the energy on them. Because I think that's really it's energy around the mistake that you won't let go.
Right. I think, also I think a lot of it has to come from our upbringing, right? We have these internal conversations with ourselves from the dialogue that we've had from people who are close to us, colleagues, family members, friends, stuff like that have been instilled in our head that pretty much shapes who we are.
Right.
You have to work on yourself so you can know how to let that kind of stuff go away so it doesn't have as much power over you. because you're giving someone or something in power over you that they don't even know they're doing, right?
Yeah,
And at the end of the day, you keep going back to that conversation way back over here in the back of your head, and it keeps driving everything you do moving forward. It can't be that way.
Right.
We have to be more than just that. We have to move into a direction that gets us to our greatness, because that's what we're meant to have.
Right.
And if we don't want to have greatness, then why? Why not?
Right.
You know, abundance is what we're supposed to have in every aspect of our lives.
Right.
Why settle?
Absolutely.
Man.
Absolutely.
Come on. Well, Sherri J.
Yes.
So any book other than Relentless that you would just kind of recommend to the people listening to the podcast that would talk about greatness or moving them in the right direction?
I would say Wallace Wattles' The Science of Being Great. That book, honestly, I think is the blueprint for everything else we read. I think because people don't read, that a lot of people have rewritten Wallace Wattles in their own language. And so you read something and be like, well, that's what Wallace said. But, you know, we don't have a society where people actually go back and read what their teachers read.
Right.
And I'm the type of person, like, I don't want to just read, say, whoever's the guru of the day. I want to go study who they study.
Right.
Because I want to see if I got a different insight from what it is that they studied. But Wallace Wattles is one of those people. And The Science of Being Great is probably one of my favorite books.
Perfect. Well, guys, with that being said, I want to thank you so much for chiming in to another episode of Wealth Habits. I appreciate you spending time with my girl, Sherri J, and our insights and thoughts. Hopefully you guys like it. Comment on there for us. Please let us know how much you like it. Feed us through our channels. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know. Have an amazing day today, guys.
Take care, everybody.
Except take